You can throw 100 Luke Giffords at Craig Aukerman. He's proven that it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. He's not good at his job. So I'm sorry, Craig. Go. Okay. Welcome into the Hot Read podcast for Monday, December the 4th. I'm your host, Easton Freeze, director of published content here at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. We're also brought to you by the 440 Podcast Network. You can follow me on social media at Easton Freeze. I'm joined as always by producer JT, who you can follow on social media at JT_Runke. JT, happy Sunday afternoon as we're recording this live. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, and we're recording this for Monday, and that is my mom's birthday. So happy birthday, Mom.
Hey,
shout out you. But yeah, I'm good.
How about that?
Yeah, look at me being trying to set a good example.
Sweet little boy, setting a good example. Family-friendly show here on the Hot Read podcast.
Yes, exactly.
Appreciate that. We're talking Titans today in a devastating loss to the Indianapolis Colts in overtime here at Nissan Stadium. JT and I both in attendance at that game, spoke to the players and coaches after the game, have a lot of thoughts on this game and on what went so wrong, as well as some things that went right. Just not as many things went right as went wrong. We're going to get into all of that today. If you're with us live on a Sunday afternoon, appreciate you joining us between the ending of the late slate of games and before Sunday Night Football. We're going to talk Titans and then get you out to your Sunday Night Football activities, I promise. But a couple of things before we get rolling. First of all, if you're watching live, do us a quick favor. First of all, if you're watching on Twitter or on Facebook, that's great, but an even better viewing experience can be had over on Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. That's Broadway Sports Media on YouTube. Go find that YouTube page, find this live stream, and then in the comment section of that YouTube video, you can be a part of the conversation today, like Kyle and Derek already are. Appreciate you guys being with us. We'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, questions on this Titans game. And if you wouldn't mind subscribing while you're there, we're trying to get that subscriber count up. It is free to you. It's very helpful to us. Just do us a quick solid, hit that subscribe button. It also helps you get access to be reminded of all of our content when it comes out. It's much easier for you to get all of your good Titans content here at the Hot Read podcast when you hit that subscribe button. So we appreciate you doing that. Also, if you wouldn't help us, share this as best you can, whether that's a retweet or a like, a thumbs up on the YouTube video. Send the link to a buddy who you might think be interested in today's show. Whatever you can do to help us get as many eyeballs on this product live as you can would be much appreciated. We are brought to you today by BoomBozz Craft Pizza and Taphouse, as we are each and every episode here on the Hot Read podcast. We appreciate BoomBozz and what they do. And what they do is make fantastic pizza and have a fantastic selection of drinks for you, as well as some of the best sports viewing setups in all of sports bars, in my opinion. They have some fantastic television arrangements at their fine locations, 3 of which here in the Middle Tennessee area, in East Nashville, in Murfreesboro, and our location in Spring Hill, where we are live each and every Thursday before Thursday Night Football doing our Titans preview episodes. So we would love for you to check out BoomBozz wherever you are. But if you'd love to come hang out with us at BoomBozz, you can do that each and every Thursday before Thursday Night Football. All right, we've got all of our housekeeping out of the way here, JT. Let's dive into today's topics. And what a wonky game from the Titans and the Colts. I mean, that game was drunk start to finish. I was talking to some folks in the press box around me saying, listen, if we're forced to watch mediocre teams go up against each other like this week in and week out, and with the Titans at this point, we're guaranteed to get at least one mediocre team in any given Titans matchup because they are a mediocre team at best. It should be the drunk version of those games, right? Like, give us this game instead of what you gave us last week in Panthers Titans. Pretty boring, pretty blah, not a lot of explosive plays, not a lot of scoring. Like, give us the off the rails junker drunk game that we got today between the Titans and the Colts. Wildly entertaining. We saw I was talking to Azeez Al-Shaair, Titans linebacker, in the locker room after the game, and he brought it up unprompted. He was like, I don't think I've seen or been a part of a football game like this where you got a little bit of everything. I mean, it was like a big Thanksgiving spread in the way that you got a little sampling of everything there is to see in an NFL game. I tried to make a list of all of the weird things that happened in this one. If I'm missing any, those of you that are watching live, help me out by filling me in the comment section. But here's what I have. Okay, so obviously you've got the 2 blocked punts, back-to-back punts, by back-to-back drives by the Titans, by the way. I'm sure that stat's going to come out at some point this week. The last time that happened, or if it's ever happened, I'm sure it's been a long time since a team has had consecutive punts blocked. That's very bad. We're going to talk about that at length in just a minute. So you had 2 punt blocks, 1 return for a touchdown. You had 4 pretty significant Titans players get hurt in Jeffrey Simmons, Derrick Henry, Ryan Stonehouse, and Josh Wiley. All left the game and did not return. You had a defensive pick 2 after the Colts blocked that first punt, and they go for 2 to try to make it a 3-point lead at that point, or no, make it a 7-point lead. They're trying to, I forget. I think it was to make it a 3-point lead at that point. Regardless, they go for 2. The Titans pick it off and return it 99 yards or however long it is to get those 2 points added on their side of the scoreboard. So you had a defensive pick 2. You had a missed point after attempt with the backup holder, Ryan Tannehill, holding the ball. And you could read his lips after that. He was saying that it was on him. He didn't probably get it to the spot where he needed it to be. Just the chemistry there between Nick Folk and Ryan Tannehill, not great. So he had a missed PAT with Ryan Tannehill holding the ball. You had Will Levis and DeAndre Hopkins fighting on the sidelines, not actually fighting, but, going back and forth, jawing at each other. Very, very spirited debate there for a minute. You had Levis recovering a defensive fumble and then then forcing the fumble and then getting it back himself. And then for a minute, we thought he returned it for a touchdown, but then they brought it back because he was down. Weird sequence, right? He throws what we think is a pick, but then the referees rule it a fumble. Regardless, it's taken by the defense, who then fumbles. And Will Levis, who, if you watch the replay, it's very funny. It's like, if you ever played basketball with a guy, pulls up from range, tries to hit a 3, and they sprint into the box because they immediately know it's nowhere near going in, and they want to be there to be a good defensive player and follow your rebound. He sprints and follows his rebound. The defender fumbles the ball going to the ground. Levis picks it up. Then he, on a kind of a bum foot, we think, runs the distance the rest of the way to get a touchdown. It's called that. Regardless, it was a 1st and 10 for the Titans. It was a interception, fumble, first down, I think. You got all that? Does that make sense? Whatever that was. And then you had a Colt tackling a Colt on a 3rd down attempt where they were going to pick it up, and it was going to be a really significant play at the end of the game. And it's 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2. And Will Fries, the Colts offensive lineman, tackles Zach Moss essentially short of the distance to gain, and they have to punt the ball to the Titans, and it gives the Titans a chance to go win the game. Weird game, man. Strange. You got a little bit of everything. Did I miss anything? Is that all? Is that everything?
I think that's pretty much it. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that just was crazy in that game, but that's
every other play is insane.
Yeah, but that was basically it. I mean, outside of the circumstances, there were just weird things happening. DeAndre Hopkins with a couple of drops that are just so uncharacteristic.
True.
You have so many Titans players getting banged up and injured in this game, having to move around the pieces on this team on both sides of the ball. It was just it was an odd game all around. But like you said, it was a entertaining one for the most part.
It was entertaining, and the Titans ended up losing. And so let's talk about why they lost. I am intrigued by this idea from Joseph Allen in the comments, who says that at the end of the game on the broadcast, they showed the Titans sideline, and there were so many shots of players that looked like they had just hit their limit. It'll be very interesting to see how this team handles themselves next Monday night on the road against Miami, as we talked about last week, kind of previewing that game. Could get ugly in that one, and coming off of a loss like this, where, Miami, for their part, Tua was not playing at the end of the game, not because he was hurt or because he was playing bad, because they were murdering the Commanders so badly that he got to take a little bit of extra time off. It's one of those games, I think, this Titans game, where either it's going to galvanize them and they'll come out swinging even harder against a Miami team, or it's one of those just street fight, rock fight, bloody and bruised divisional matchups between two teams in the Titans and the Colts who hate each other. And both of those teams leave and don't put up a great performance the next week because they kind of beat each other to a pulp. That wouldn't shock me either. I think how the Titans respond this week, speaking to us at the podium, in the locker room, what they look like at practice, just the vibe will be really telling as to, what the leadership situation is, because you have a number of leaders down and their status really up in the air. And, Derrick Henry, who usually talks each week, Jeffrey Simmons, who we talk to every time we get the chance to, it could get weird fast. So we'll have to track all this week. But it was a tough one for the Titans, and they lost for two reasons in particular, in my opinion. And it's in this order. They lost because of special teams, and they lost because of their secondary. And we're going to talk about both. And they weren't the only two units on the team that were an issue, but they were the reason that they lost this game for my money. They did what they needed to do to win as a team in large part. And that's what's mostly frustrating about this, I think, to most fans, is because they were, in many elements of the game, the better team out there. I mean, I've got the final stat sheet right here. Let's just look at some of the key metrics when you're doing a little bit of box score scouting, trying to figure out maybe who the better or more deserving team was, or trying to figure out maybe the team that lost shot themselves in the foot a little bit. You dive into some of these numbers, right? And we watch the game. We're not box score scouting this entirely, but these numbers are telling. If you look, for example, at, let me get it pulled up here. If you look at the total first downs, right? The Titans outdid the Colts 25-19. Third down efficiency. Titans were 6 for 17 to the Colts 3 for 14. So the Colts were 21.4%. The Titans 35.3%. Best of the Colts in that category. The best of the Colts in total net yards, right? 381 to 355. They, in their first matchup in week 5, that game was largely dictated by the trenches, right? We talked all about that when that happened. The Colts just punked the Titans in the trenches on both sides of the ball. The Titans managed to flip the script in that regard this week. In the running game, they had 4.2 average yards per rush, whereas the Colts had just 2.4. Zach Moss very much bottled up. The Titans, the two-headed monster of Derrick Henry and Tyjae Spears, really working well from start to finish today. It didn't even take a long time for Derrick Henry to get rolling. By the 13-minute mark into the game, he'd already surpassed the number of rushing yards he had in the Titans-Colts first matchup this week. So things were starting out hot and heavy for them, and they did a good job in that regard. You look at red zone efficiency. The Titans went 2 for 3, 67%. The Colts held just 1 for 5, 20%. Really fantastic, stout defense from the Titans in the red area. Time of possession, the Titans outdid the Colts significantly, 38 minutes and 26 seconds to the Colts 29 minutes and 3 seconds. So outdoing the Colts by nearly 9 minutes in that regard. These are all things that if you just looked at the box score, I didn't tell you the score, you'd say it was probably the Titans. Titans probably won, right? They won this game. No, they lost by 3 in overtime. And so why was that? Again, the special teams blunders, which we're going to dive into in a minute, and the secondary, which we're going to dive into in a minute. You can also point to, as we've talked about in recent weeks about this Titans team being undisciplined, they were an undisciplined team today. Look at the penalties. The Colts, 4 penalties for 29 yards in this one. The Titans, the home team, the team that should be the more disciplined team just by nature of the situation, nature of the circumstances, 9 penalties for 74 yards, outdoing the Colts dramatically in that category. That's the kind of thing that loses you games. But the thing that lost them the game in this one, pretty much entirely, in my opinion, like 75, 85% of the blame here lies on the shoulders of the special teams unit for the Titans, lies squarely on the shoulders of one Craig Aukerman. Now, I'm not somebody that is often calling for people's jobs in any walk of life, but certainly not on this job, on this show. And I really, I'm grossed out by the idea of saying somebody should lose their livelihood. However, you have to, like, there's an element of responsibility and culpability in this league and in this line of business in sports media. We've reached a point with Craig Aukerman, and you could argue we reached this point literally years ago, where it's enough is enough. I'm not saying he shouldn't have a job. I'm saying he shouldn't have this one. Like, is that fair? I'm sorry. Like, it's very clear that he should no longer be employed as the Titans special teams coordinator. Somebody else should be doing that. He should be doing another job. It's no good. It's constantly masked year. Like, just when you think you've had a year from hell for the Titans special teams, and like, this is finally the year that'll do them in the offseason, Mike Vrabel is going to find somebody new. They'll switch it out. They'll try something fresh. And then they go and they find a Ryan Stonehouse. And they went from MV punter to MV punter. Like, the punting situation is going to buoy this special teams unit. And then this kicking situations reaching a breaking point. Okay, well, we went out and we got Nick Folk. We traded a 7th rounder for Nick Folk. He's going to come in. He's going to buoy, with the kicking, both punting and kicking. That's going to buoy this special teams unit. And Craig Aukerman's going to keep his job. We're once again at a point where there's no answers. Okay, Nick Folk's missing extra points, and the punt unit is getting Ryan Stonehouse murdered. Who's that on? It's execution. There's an execution element to it, but who's responsible for making these special teamers, these bottom of the roster guys, know what to do in terms of executing. There's two different types of poor execution to me, right? There's a guy, clearly you can tell he knows what he's trying to do out there, and you can tell he's trying, he just can't do it. Like I have a hard time attributing those things to a coach, right? Like when the Titans, when Jack Gibbons just gets beat to the corner by a guy that is more athletic than him, that is bigger and faster than him. Like he's trying, you can tell he's been coached up to do the right thing. He's just getting beat. He's an inferior player. That's not really on the coaches, right? That's just you got to get better personnel. When a player doesn't know what they're doing, when a defender on the gunner on punt team is motioning in to the edge of the line, and you can tell that he's trying to time up the snap, and he's going to take off after the punter and try to get a block. And you've got Josh Wiley standing there as the secondary defender, and he's being pointed out, the defender, by the gunner, like, hey, Josh, look, there's the guy. He's coming. And then Josh just ignores him, lets him run free and murder Ryan Stonehouse in the backfield. That's coaching, man. That's a guy not knowing what he's supposed to do. That's a team not ready to face the personnel or the scheme that the defense is throwing at them. That's a team unprepared. That's on Craig Aukerman. That kind of thing can't stand. And you got genuinely one of your best players on the team in Ryan Stonehouse. You got him killed today. I saw him walking out of the locker room. That guy's not playing football anytime soon. Like, let me be the first to tell you, he's not playing again soon. He had a full leg brace on one leg, on crutches, putting no weight on the leg that got torn up. Based on the video, one could speculate that he tore his knee up. I'm not gonna do that, but like it certainly looks like that's on the table as a possibility. Not a doctor, but we'll know more this week, I'm guessing. The point is, I'm very confident in saying he's done for a while. The Titans are going to have to figure something out at punter. That's the kind of thing that can't stand, right? You got a backup holder coming in, can't get the hold down in Ryan Tannehill, and you miss an extra point that very easily could have won you the game, JT. I mean, you look at the actual points where they came from in this game. It was genuinely just the special teams that cost the Titans this one. Because you tally them up. You do the math. The Colts scored 8 of their points in this game off of special teams alone, directly as a result of special teams successes by them and blunders by the Titans. They lost by 3, the Titans did. So that, do the math there. That's the deciding factor. Okay, because you got the Colts getting 6 points off of their first blocked punt, return for a touchdown. Titans got 2 of those points back on the pick 2 on the 2-point conversion, right? So it's +4 in the Colts' favor. Then you had the Colts blocking the second punt consecutively, which puts them in chip shot field goal range. They get a field goal easily there. That's another 3. So now it's 7 points in the Colts' favor. And then you had the extra point that the Titans missed. They leave that point on the board. That's a point in the Colts' favor. Like that's 8 points right there. That's an 8-point swing that the Titans should have been able to account for, all of, at least some of. And yet they put all those 8 points out there and give them to the Colts. And that's the game. And that's Craig Aukerman, man. That's Craig Aukerman. I know it's going to be the most popular take of the week, and I'm also here to tell you that nothing's going to change. I'll be surprised. Like folks are like, Easton only loves Vrabel. He only points out the good thing. Like he's a Vrabel stan. He's a defender of Vrabel. He never First of all, if you say that about me, which folks do on the internet, you're clearly not listening to our content. I criticize Vrabel all the time, but this is a prime example of a thing that I have been and will continue to be critical of Vrabel for. This is Vrabel's boy, Craig Aukerman. He's got to go. And Vrabel's not going to do anything about it because that's not his thing. He's not a fire coach midseason kind of guy. Maybe we get lucky and Aukerman's finally gone in the offseason. But for now, I'm telling you, he's sticking around. JT, what do folks have to say in the comments? What did you think about the special teams blunders in this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. It's inexcusable most of the time. These are routine plays that, like you said, if Josh Wiley is on, like you said, on this unit and can't pick that up, that is something that is simply not getting through to him or is not being coached correctly right now. And that's got to change because there are ramifications. It's not like this was a freak accident one-time thing that happened to Ryan Stonehouse. It literally happened it was a different formation a little bit, but the same exact thing happened the drive before. Like this was a two drive situation here where the Colts clearly saw something that they could exploit there and the Titans do nothing to adjust and try to change up how they defend that there. And Ryan Stonehouse gets absolutely pummeled both times. And the second time, he's pummeled for the worse. And like you said, is done playing football for a little bit now. So yeah, I don't know. It's tough.
Blocked kicks happen, right? You know, you see a blocked kick every once in a while. It's not one blocked punt is not of grounds for firing, but when it happens twice in one game, and when it happens on back-to-back drives, like if that does not scream to you a coaching problem, a scheme problem, an awareness and adjustments problem, right? Like that, there's nothing more clear than that. Nothing more clear.
Yeah. There is nothing more clear. And as Joseph Allen says here, he says a staple of bad team, always finding new ways to lose each week. And that this is just one of those
in the foot in particular.
That happens once again. Sunmaker says, so frustrating that Stonehouse got hurt. Thankfully, it doesn't look like his kicking leg got hurt. So that is a plus there.
That's good, but you need a plant leg to kick like that. You need both your legs. There's no one-legged kicking out there. So
and then Woodron with a very, very strong opinion here that he says, look, isn't it fair to think variable is tanking? No adjustments, no effort to calibrate. They seem to be doing everything to lose on a coaching level. So why not give them credit for the tank? I think the part here for
enter the spin zone, baby. Woodron in the spin zone.
I think the biggest part here is though that it's not just a Craig Aukerman thing, and we can talk about this a little bit, but it is a lack of adjustment by two different sections of this team. The offense, when it comes to second half adjustments, and the special teams, when they can't adjust because they got beat twice on the. You
want to throw the defense in there because they get beat deep and then they just don't change anything. They get beat deep again. Like
I guess I could throw them in there because
say the whole team can't adjust right now.
I mean, it is fair to say because on the last play of the game in overtime, the Colts essentially run the same play twice. One time trying to force it to Alec Pierce, and the second time they just adjust by letting Michael Pittman move back a little bit, and then Michael Pittman scores. It was the same exact play. They drew it up the same exact way, and that's how they lose. So yes, I think now that you say that, it makes my mind's eye is now clear. This team fails to adjust on multiple levels, if not all levels.
And we've been saying this about Aukerman for years, and we can move on from the special teams in a minute. The secondary is going to get their just desserts. Don't you worry. We're gonna talk about them. But I'm watching this game in the press box, and my mind keeps being forced back to Titans Colts in Nashville 3 years ago. Phillip Rivers is the Colts quarterback in that one. It was a brutal loss for the Titans. Another game that you absolutely walk away saying the Titans are the better team. The Titans are the team that should have won this game. And yet they lose in large part because of the special teams. Okay. Fans will remember that's the one where the Titans were without Brett Kern. So they had the FedEx driver punter in for that game. It was a 1 week and done guy in the NFL, guy they brought in who his first punt blocked. The special teams unit could not protect him for that one. And then the Colts almost blocked the second one in that one, but he shanks the punt exactly consecutive to the blocked punt, and it goes 19 total yards, and the Colts have the ball almost in the red zone already. So, like, the symmetry between that game and this game and the punting blunders that led to the Colts winning the game ultimately, it doesn't get more direct than that, doesn't get more painful than that to see Groundhog's Day style. The same thing happened 3 years later against the same team in the same building for the same result. It's brutal. And that is one of countless examples over Craig Aukerman's tenure in Tennessee that you can point to and say, this is not a new problem. This has been a problem for a long, long time. Got to change something. He's been given every chance. If in Vrabel's defense, often, I'd say pretty much all the time, with his quarterback or with his coaches rather, that he keeps in his boys that he defends, it's largely, and oftentimes he's right about this. Hey, it's not the coaching, like it's the personnel. Like I'm doing the same thing with Tim Kelly all year long. I've been talking about how, hey, Tim Kelly, he's not your problem, man. It's the people out there. It's the players, right? With Shane Bowen, that was the defense of him when he had a bad first year, and Vrabel said, we're keeping him on in the offseason. We're getting new guys. They went and got new guys. The defense immediately improved. Like, that kind of argument works. That holds water in certain circumstances. That does not hold water with Aukerman. Aukerman's been given how many people talk about this all the time, right? In the offseason, the number one thing for the Titans is, we're bringing in this guy from Dallas, right? This kid, he's a tight end. He's going to be nice depth for you. But where he's really special, he is a special teams ace. This fella is going to be a weapon for Craig Aukerman and the boys. Like, this guy's going to get after it in special teams. Special teams unit's going to be awesome. They're going to be solid. They're going to make big tackles, open field tackles. They're going to force punt returners down at the point of contact. They're going to never allow any blocked kick. And then we get to the season, and then this stuff happens, right? Every year he's given these special teams aces in free agency, and it doesn't mean anything. We're no more Luke Giffords. Like, you can throw 100 Luke Giffords at Craig Aukerman. He's proven that it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. He's not good at his job. So I'm sorry, but Craig, you got to go. Okay. Let's talk about everything that happened in this game that wasn't special teams, which also wild and kind of up and down for the Titans. This is a brutal loss for the Titans should win now crowd. It's a pretty great loss for the tank crowd. Good loss for the tank crowd. Titans, I believe, right now are set to pick 8th if the draft happened today. So they're still hovering right in that upper top 10 range.
Yep, they're right between the Jets and New Orleans at the 8th seed right now.
Tasty company. Love that. But yeah, so like, is this a glass half full or half empty situation? My dad, irate naturally as a Titans fan, texting me during the game about this or that, or like, good play here. Can't believe Chig dropped that ball there. All of these things. And at one point he stops and he says, what should we be rooting for here? Like, should we be rooting for a win or a loss? And I said, at the end of the day, it's not really the end of the world either way. There is a glass half full on both sides of any Titans win or loss for the rest of the season, because it is a loss season for them in terms of playoff hopes. They now have 8 losses, right? Which means the best they can do is 9-8 if they win out, and they have to go play teams like Miami and Seattle and the Texans twice and the Jaguars again for the rest of this year. So it's going to be a couple losses in there. I'm not just going to break the news to you now, let you down softly. They're going to lose a couple of those games. They might win a couple of those games, but they're not going to win all of them. And for that reason, the playoffs are no longer in the picture for them. That does not mean, however, that I am on this team. Like, I'm not a radical tanker at this point. I think that is silly and foolish for fans of a team to be active. Like, it's a tricky situation, because ultimately, yes, a better draft pick is better for your team. But what I think makes it depends team to team what the situation is, right? If you're a team that, I'm trying to think of an example, like the Jets before they got Zach Wilson, right? And they're winless through 9 or 10 or 11 games of the year. And every Jets fan in the world is begging, screaming for this team to lose. Or, for example, this year, right? The Giants, who are, I think, still at the number 2 pick. They're somewhere up in the top 3 picks, right? They would love to go and get themselves a better quarterback. Or the Bears, who currently have the Panthers number 1 pick. They'd love to get themselves one of these quarterbacks, right? If you're in the market for a top of the draft quarterback, that changes the math on the tanking a little bit. Okay, I'm about that. But if this Titans team has their future set at quarterback and Will Levis, which many of you believe they do, I would say they certainly should be operating as if that were the case as of this moment for the rest of the season. I think that's totally fair. We'll talk about Levis's game in a little bit. I don't think that actively rooting for tanking is the right idea, because I think finding ways to, becoming comfortable with winning ball games, establishing a winning culture, and getting some winning reps in there for a quarterback that's going to be your future, playing around a pretty hefty number of young guys who, there's some really bad guys on this team, but there are some young guys that are definitely cornerstone players of the future. Your Tajay Spears and your Josh Wiley and Chikakonkwo and Traylon Burks and DeAndre Hopkins is still set for next year. Like, these kind of guys that are going to be around, like, get the chemistry rolling. Let's get this team figuring it out so that they can go into next season having already figured some things out, or having already gotten some winning capital in their winner wallet, right? That's an important thing, and it's an intangible thing, but it's a really, really important thing that I don't think should be minimized. And for that reason, I think winning or losing the rest of the year is not that big a deal. Let the offseason chips fall as they may. They're going to have a high-ish pick. Like, it would shock me if the Titans were picking outside of the top 16. Okay. Unless they make the playoffs, what does the last team out of the playoffs pick? How many teams are in the playoffs? 14?
Currently, yeah. The Buffalo Bills are 15th, and they're 6-6 right now. So
right. So if I guess so, 14 teams get into the playoffs. So the 18th pick goes to the last team out, right? Is 18? Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. So yeah, they're definitely going to be picking inside the top 18. And I'd be shocked if they're picking north of 15, to be honest. Like, they're going to get a pretty good pick. Don't worry about it. The odds are pretty high that they get the single digit pick, which is good. So let's cross that bridge when we get there. Injuries across the board. We can talk about those and what I've heard and seen from the locker room, just to kind of get some reporting out of the way. Derrick Henry, I asked him if he was all right in the locker room. Certainly seemed all right. He gave me a quick yes and was preoccupied with something else, but he seemed to be fine. Concussion protocol for him. Maybe he misses next week, but I think somebody responded to my tweet about Derrick Henry and said, maybe the last time we see Derrick Henry in a Titans uniform. He's got a concussion. Relax. Like, he's going to be back. He's going to be fine. Jeffrey Simmons, knee injury, couldn't finish the game. We asked Vrabel about it. He did not offer anything more on Simmons. I believe Jordan Schultz with Bleacher Report and Paul Kaharski of paulkaharski.com have both reported as of this recording that Jeffrey Simmons' knee injury is not a big deal. He's avoided anything major. They're going to do an MRI tomorrow to confirm that there's not any structural damage, but they believe that he's going to be fine and that his injury is not, as Paul Kaharski's source put it, not season ending. So that's very good news. Jeffrey Simmons is important for them. Ryan Stonehouse, I've already given the report on him. Not great. Not a good situation for him. I would not be shocked if he is done for the year. Really, I would not. And I would be shocked if he comes back anytime soon. I think that he may just hang it up for the year and rehab that leg, but we will see. Josh Whyle, I'm not sure. He walked into the locker room with Derrick Henry. Unless I missed it, JT, and you were watching the game. Correct me if I'm wrong. He didn't go down on the field, right? He came off kind of unassuming and then walked into the locker room and then was ruled out. Yes,
he walked off under his own power and was later taken to the locker room and ruled out. However, PK Paul Kaharski reported just a little bit ago that he also has a source that says Josh Whyle's knee injury is also not season ending. So that is good news as well for Josh Whyle.
That is good news. Okay, so those are the four major injuries in this game, and those were they played a significant part in this one. I want to talk about a couple of receivers. First of all, the Titans' only receiver, really at this point, DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, it's hilarious. We've gotten to a point, JT, where he really is the only guy out there that's making meaningful contributions consistently at the receiver position. You look at the box score here: 12 targets, 5 receptions on those 12 targets. The Colts did a good job doing the obvious thing defensively and being like, let's make sure that this guy doesn't beat us. He still had a productive day, 75 yards on those 5 receptions, averaging 15 yards per reception, and has that one touchdown there that should have been the game leading, maybe game winning touchdown, but then they missed the extra point. The next couple guys on the list in terms of receiving contributors for the Titans, you got Tyjae Spears. So, I'm not trying to go back on what we said in the preseason. We fought this battle with people saying the Titans receiving room looks bad by saying receivers are more than just the guys with WR in front of their name, right? Like, it's guys that can catch the ball. So yes, these non-technical receivers are receivers, and that's important. But there are actual wide out receivers on this team that should be contributing more, and they're not, because Tyjae Spears, the next closest guy, 4 receptions for 13 yards. Then you got a tight end in Chigakonkwo, 3 receptions for 62 yards. Then you got NWI, the second best receiver on the day, 1 reception for 28 yards. And then the only other receiver on this list, it goes NWI, then Derrick Henry, running back, tight end Josh Whyle, and then you got Chris Moore in there, 1 reception on 1 target for 12 yards, and then tight end Trayvon Wesco. So you got 3 total receivers on this list, and everyone not named DeAndre Hopkins had 2 total receptions for right at 40 yards. That's not good. You need, and I'm in fairness to Burks, he was clearly on a snap count. He did not play. I don't have the exact number. I'm sure Tron, if you want to find the exact number, Tron Davenport puts out snap counts typically on Twitter. So go check out our buddy Teron, but he did not play many snaps in this one. We asked Vrabel about that after the game. He said he's just coming back after missing 3 weeks. We're easing him back in. That's natural. So the expectations for him are still to contribute more in the future. Kyle Phillips, I don't know what the story is there. We're gonna get, and as Joseph said in the comments here, one gripe: I don't like seeing Kyle Phillips as a healthy scratch when Traylon played 9 snaps. He says he believes, somewhere in there, Joseph. For a secondary that was depleted for the Colts, it sucks that the Titans didn't have 18 out there instead of 16, and he's referencing Colton Dowell. Of course, Dowell was active in large part because in somebody asked this question of Vrabel in the postgame press conference: why'd you keep Dowell on the active roster today instead of Phillips? And Vrabel's like, we didn't. Like, that wasn't the binary choice. We didn't choose Dowell over Phillips. Dowell is making the active roster right now because he's been a very positive contributor for them on, funny enough, special teams. And that's a needed thing for them, clearly. Phillips not being out there is interesting, though. And we're going to have to dig into that this week. I don't know whether there's something up because today, when you've got nobody but Hopkins contributing and you've got guys really struggling to contribute in that short to intermediate area of the field, that middle class of the passing game that we've talked about, how the Titans have all year kind of hollowed that out. He's the kind of guy that can get open in short area quickness, get that space underneath it and find a way to get open quickly. Like that's the skill set he offers. Why they chose not to have that in this game, I don't know. Maybe he's banged up. Maybe it's personal. I don't know. We're going to have to figure out what exactly went into that decision. I wouldn't imagine that's going to be the thing going forward, but that was certainly surprising when we saw that, JT.
Yeah, I would agree. That was very surprising. Could it be a performance thing? I mean, he did have one reception for -3 yards in the Carolina game. He wasn't used very effectively. I'm not sure if that was maybe part of the game plan, but still, it is a head scratcher, I think. As Joseph also points out, he says Kyle Phillips seems to be building a chemistry with Will, and I hated to see them sit him, especially in a big game. I agree that it's hard for me to see why it would be performance, although I think there may be possibility of that. But yeah, it is a head scratcher for sure.
The other receiver I want to talk about is Michael Pittman. You want to talk about my original points here, who lost these games. Titan secondary, very culpable in this one. And Michael Pittman tore them up all day long. Pretty crazy stat line here for you from Pittman. 11 receptions on 16 targets for 105 yards and a touchdown, averaging just shy of 10 yards per catch. He was a problem all day long. And I mean, at one point, literally, it was third down in Titans territory. The Colts have the ball. I think it was 3rd and 10 or 11. And I tweeted out, I said, if I were the Titans, I would keep a couple of eyeballs on Michael Pittman on this one. And then what do you know? An in-breaking route where he's wide open in one-on-one coverage, 14 yards, first down. If I'm seeing it up there in the press box, they're seeing it down there on the field. They're seeing it down there on the sidelines. You got to make adjustments for that. And this is where the adjustments execution debate, I lean much more towards execution because this Titan secondary is just flat not good, man. They just don't have the horses. They don't have the guys. They don't have the dudes. And that is showing each and every week. Good thing is the Titans don't have to face any good receivers next week. So that's very good news. They only have to see Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And the fastest dream team ever known to man, Mike McDaniel's Miami Dolphins. So that I'm sure that'll go well. We'll talk about all about that nightmare that is impending later this week. But for this game, they couldn't contain Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce. I mean, Pierce, they allowed 2 100-yard receivers today. The Titans secondary did. They allowed 3 70+ yard receivers today. It was the Kylan Granson game for the Colts tight end room. But Alec Pierce, only 3 receptions for 100 yards flat, averaging 33.3 yards per reception with a long of 55 and a touchdown for him. Kylan Granson, 3 receptions for 72 yards, averaging 24 yards per reception with a long of 46. They contained Josh Downs. Like they did what we said they needed to do. Josh Downs and Zach Moss got to contain these guys. Okay, well, Zach Moss, 19 carries, 51 yards, 2.7 yards per carry with a long of 5 yards. Contained, right? Josh Downs, 3 receptions on 5 targets for 14 yards and a long of 9. Contained. You just forgot that Kylan Granson and Alec Pierce and Mike Pittman existed, I guess, because those guys tore you a new one. That was a big issue for the Titans all day long. It felt like whenever the Colts and Gardner Minshew wanted Michael Pittman, he was there, free, open. They probably could. They threw it to him 11 times today. They threw it at him 16 times today. It felt like they could have thrown it to him 30. Like it felt like he was just a free space, a pass go, collect 200 whenever the Colts needed it. And for the Titans' part, Christian Fulton, who historically has done better against Michael Pittman than any other receiver in the league, absent today. Bad game from him. Sean Murphy-Bunting, a frustrating game for him in that regard. Roger McCreary didn't really nobody in the secondary really made any plays in this one. It was a big issue.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Especially, I mean, I'm not here to throw even more on Sean Murphy-Bunting for a tough day, especially when the last play.
And that penultimate play that penalty was bogus. He said it. Vrabel said it.
Yes.
They waited 90 minutes into the ball game to call the first illegal touching downfield. It was 2 guys in press coverage. a couple feet from the like, it was a bogus call.
It was
bogus.
But still, I mean, he was on for most part when Michael Pittman was on that side, he was lined up against him, and Michael Pittman won every single time. I mean, it was some soft zone coverage that Michael Pittman was just able to win and continue to get yards after the catch, no matter what he did or when he wanted to do it. Gardner Minshew was able to throw it to him, and he just had an off day, which allowed Michael Pittman to absolutely just eat this team alive. And like you said, we're going to talk about this all week. You're going up against a team that I don't see how this secondary can contain either Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle next week.
Right. No, I think the Titans are capable of putting some points up on the Dolphins defense. I think the Dolphins are capable of putting all of the points up on the Titans defense. I think any points that exist in the multiverse, they can put all of them on the Titans if they so choose. So yeah, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, the last thing I want to talk about before we get to the news with JT and then we get out of here, dead in the second half again. This Titans team comes out offensively flat. Their first 3 drives of the second half, 3 and outs. I asked Will Levis about this after the game. He attributed it largely to himself, and we should touch on Levis's game today. He was really, and this is the mark of a young man with the head in the right place, a great leader, a good quarterback, in my opinion. He was very, very self-critical at the podium. He said that he felt like this was his worst game as a Titan. After he said that last week in the loss or in the win to Carolina, he said, like, even though we won, I think this is probably one of my worst games. He said that today was his worst. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. I have to go back and watch the tape, I think. But in general, I don't think he had a particularly bad game. Not a lot was available to him. I think there were a couple of missed opportunities for sure. And he didn't hit on a ton of explosives. But in general, he was like boring in a good way. Does that make sense? Like, he was effective. He hit the passes where he needed to be. He was relatively accurate. He was giving his guys a chance to go get the ball. He was navigating the pocket as best he could. Like, I felt like he had a fine day. But when asked about the second half and the 3 and outs in a row, and he said it's just execution. And he said, I've got to do better. That's poor performance for me. It's bad football, and I'm going to have to learn from that. And he said, I'm going to be sick watching some of that tape this week. So I don't know. What did you think of his performance today?
I mean, I kind of see where he was coming from, especially on where he said, I missed a couple of reads that I should have had. There were a couple of times. I know for one of them, there was one on the play where he threw it to, I believe, Chris Moore in the end zone, where it was called a touchdown, but then called back.
Right.
He misses Treylon Burks wide open right there. Instead of, obviously, he was wide open, could have been an easier pass than throwing up the jump ball to Chris Moore. He missed a couple to Tyjae Spears. There were a couple times where I saw on the field, I was like, the read is right there, just take it. And he waited a beat or two too long, and that's where he started scrambling and rushing around in that pocket once it collapsed. So I can definitely see where he was coming from that. And
I think I agree with you on the vision.
There's a
difference between the vision and the accuracy and the execution.
Yes.
Right? Like, I agree with you that the vision wasn't great today, but I didn't feel like he was super inaccurate or making bad decisions necessarily.
No,
maybe just missing the
I
decisions.
think, he missed a couple of decisions, but by no means did I think he had a bad day. Kyle does have something to say about Levis, where he says, he loves to see that Levis was holding dudes accountable, especially a guy accountable like future Hall of Famer DeAndre Hopkins, getting into it with him. And he says Tannehill never showed emotion like that, at least in his opinion.
That last part's not really true, but yeah, I get what you're saying. It is good to see him holding guys accountable and being a leader in that way. Just to address the comments a little bit more here, Joseph, kind of off topic here, but a fair question. Joseph asks, what are the odds Caleb Farley ever contributes to this ball club, in reference to the secondary, obviously. He said that he wishes him the best personally, as we all do. They're not high. That folks ask me all the time these days, like, when is Caleb coming back? He's got the biggest, fattest TBD on him right now. It is to be determined, man. This guy, like, he's there. It's not like he's not at practice. It's like he's not working. He is. And we check in with him from time to time. And personally, he's doing all right from what we understand. But yeah, he's still working through stuff physically. I don't know if he's ever going to contribute ever. Certainly, I don't know about this year, but I'm not sure if it's ever going to be a thing. And if it is, I don't know if it's going to be any good, because we've not seen a whole lot of good from him when he is on the field. So I don't know. Long story short, just operate until further notice. I would operate as if that's not a thing that's going to ever happen. Okay, that's enough for today. We got plenty more to talk about it regarding the Titans on Tuesday's episode. But one last thing to get to today, we got the news with producer JT. JT, what do we have in the news today?
Let's talk about some good things that came out of today's Titans game. Two players who reached another step on the milestones of their careers, and another great example of why they should be Hall of Famers. We'll start with Derrick Henry today, which he had another rushing touchdown today, which put him at exactly 86 rushing touchdowns. And the only running backs to do that in their first 8 NFL seasons is now Derrick Henry and two other guys named Adrian Peterson and Eric Dickerson. And
so
guess what?
Current Hall of Famer,
Yeah.
a future Hall of Famer, and Derrick Henry.
Yes.
Interesting.
Correct. And it's notable to say that Derrick Henry's season isn't done. He could have more touchdowns than that through his first 8 NFL seasons. So much more to come possibly for him. And then let's talk about DeAndre Hopkins, who only needed a few catches and yards to join a couple or move up the milestones.
Didn't he just one? Wasn't he one away coming into this game?
He needed 2 receptions for 3 yards today.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And he indeed got those 2 receptions for 3 yards. And he now joins Larry Fitzgerald, Jerry Rice, Marvin Harrison, and Brandon Marshall as the only wide receivers to have 12,000 yards and 900 receptions and 75 touchdowns in their first 11 seasons.
You know what's funny about that list is we read those names, and my number one thought is, man, folks sleeping on Brandon Marshall. Dude was a baller.
Right? He
was on some bad team. I mean, he's actually on pretty much only bad teams.
Yes.
But boy, could Brandon Marshall play ball. Because you got DeAndre Hopkins, a clear future Hall of Famer. Fitzgerald, future. Jerry, current. Marvin Harrison, current. And then Brandon Marshall, who, I'm just saying.
I mean, the stats show.
The numbers are there.
The numbers are there for B. Marsh. There.
Yeah, 100%.
But let's move on to the AFC South roundup here, when we only have one game to get to, as the Jaguars face off against the very decimated Bungles tomorrow night on Monday Night Football. Not looking forward to watching that one. But the Houston Texans, they get another win as they defeat the Denver Broncos 22-17, coming down to the last second, where the Broncos and Russell Wilson had an opportunity to take the lead in that game, but Russell Wilson throws a interception into the end zone in that one, so the Texans get away with the win.
The guy was there. Yes. It was just a late and soft throw. A better quarterback makes that, and it's a game over. But yeah.
CJ Stroud, once again, looks good. 16 of 27 for 274 yards and a touchdown. Unfortunately, Tank Dell, who was having a star season, goes down with injury. Is now going to be put on IR.
Can you tell the people why he got injured, how he got injured? Because this is crazy.
He got injured on a play where obviously we had concerns about Tank Dell coming into this season, because he is a smaller guy.
Little boy. Tank Dell, little baby boy.
And undersized. I believe he is under 6 foot and under 200 pounds. And they were using him as
try 5'11", 165. Like, this dude's
that's
small.
Well below 200.
Yeah, I could be. I'll double check that, but keep going. Sorry.
But he was used as a lead blocker on the goal line for a Dameon Pierce rushing touchdown. And when you put it like that, I think that there's a high possibility that your wide receiver, who is less than 200 pounds and less than 6 foot, getting pushed into that pile is going.
Sorry, I was wrong. I said he was 5'11", 165. He's 5'10", 165. Pardon me. Yeah, big fella.
But ultimately, it sucks for him. He's going to miss some time. Possibility of coming back for the playoffs if Houston is still in that race, and it looks like they could still be in that race, because they got another wide receiver who absolutely cooked today in Nico Collins, who caught 9 balls on 12 receptions for 191 yards and a touchdown. It's going to be interesting when he goes up against this Titans secondary in 2 weeks, but it looks like CJ Stroud is in good hands going forward here.
Yeah, man. You say the Texans may still be in that race. I know that they are, because I don't know what the rest of their schedule looks like, but I do know they have two lines on that schedule that read at Titans and versus Titans. So They're in it, man. Basically the entire AFC South, not named the Titans. This is what the AFC South leaderboard looks like right now. You got the 8-3 Jaguars pending tomorrow's Monday Night Football game. Then the 7-5 Colts and the 7-5 Texans, and then the lowly 4-8 Tennessee Titans there at the bottom. Looking forward to the draft. Anything else in the news?
Nothing else in the news, but let's talk about our best bet gauntlet roundup for today. Let's see how we did. Personally, my record, I am
another
currently
victory for the OGs and the best bet gauntlet. We can't miss, man.
We cannot, as I go 3-1 currently on the day. The only one I lost on is, of course, the Tennessee game, which is very frustrating. Had to sweat that one out.
Should be 4-0.
Had to sweat that one out till the very end. I'm a little frustrated about that one, but now I'm pending Green Bay +6 as they are currently leading the Kansas City Chiefs 7-0 in the first quarter with 4 minutes left to go in that first quarter there. And then you, Easton, went 3-2 on the day. As you lose the New York Jets one, which was just a gross game in general.
That one, the other one that I lost, we'll talk about in a second. I was wrong about that. It was a bad read, bad game. This one I'm mad about because the Jets outgained the Falcons by a lot, and they were in scoring position quite often, and they couldn't get it in. They should have won that game, but
yes,
neither here nor
there.
And then 3-2s. If you gave me a 3-2 each and every week for the rest of my life, I would take it in a heartbeat. That's 60%. We take 3-2s. We take 60%.
We do. And this one, however, you would like to have back as you texted me when the Miami Dolphins went up 45-15 on I
think I texted you at about like 12:27.
Oh, you might have, yes.
This might be the wrong side. I immediately knew. It's one of those bets where you watch it and you're like, this bet's dead. It's already the game is 14-0 and the bet is already dead. I can tell. I can feel it. But yeah, that's fine. We get San Fran, we get Detroit, we get Carolina, all three of those cash. We get 3-2, we move. So let's say the show currently at 6-3, pending Green Bay. So either going to be 6-4 and be a nice, clean 60% on the week as a show, or 7-3, which is a percentage that's more than 60% that I can't do on the top of my head. So very good for us on the show. Another winning week, another week where we improve our overall winning percentage as we are just shy of 60% all time. So that's fantastic. Is that it for the news today, JT?
Yeah, that's going to do it for today.
All right, that is our news and that is our show. Appreciate everybody tuning in with us live today. If you're with us, thanks so much for being a part of the conversation. We'll have much more in-depth Titans recap to do on Tuesday afternoon live as we record our Wednesday morning show. So make sure to tune in to that one, as well as Thursday evening. We are live 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time at BoomBozz in Spring Hill. Come hang out with us. It's going to be a good time previewing what should be an interesting conversation. The Titans and the Dolphins on Monday Night Football next week,
and then stay.
Now, to be fair, we think their Monday Night Football game is next week. However, they do have the option now to flex Monday night games, so not out of the realm of possibility that this is a Sunday game. We will see. But yeah, staying to watch Thursday Night Football, which
by the way, now
who that is.
Well, now with Kenny Pickett being reported that he's going to be done for some time, it's now going to be Bailey Zappi versus Mitch Trubisky next week. So come out to make this game a drinking game, I guess, or figure out some way to enjoy this.
Come for the drinking game, because that's what it's going to be. It's what it has to be. It's what it has to be.
Because I don't know how else to enjoy that game.
There is no other way to enjoy that game. Just pain and suffering. Okay, that is our show. Appreciate producer JT being here. Appreciate you guys all being here. Make sure you're subscribed to our show at Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. That's Broadway Sports Media on YouTube. Hit subscribe for us. And make sure you're following on social medias at Hot Read Pod on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Until Tuesday, I'm your host, Easton Freeze. For producer JT, this has been the Hot Read Podcast. Have a great rest of your Sunday. We'll talk to you later.